Hi everyone. In this episode, we're going to be learning the Osteon model for the SCB 203 bone exam. Okay. Now, the Osteon is a repeating structure found in compact bone that contributes to the structural integrity of the bone tissue, making it one of the strongest materials of the human body. Another aspect I hope you get from this video is that due to the Haversian canal system, the bone cells, or osteocytes, seem very far apart, but in reality, they are in direct contact with nutrients such as oxygen and waste removal, making bone one of the most dynamic tissues in the body. Thus, bone heals very, very well, contrast to other tissues such as cartilage, which just heals very poorly. Now, as we've done in previous videos, I'll be naming the structures that are important for this video, and then we're going to use illustrations to find out where they're located. Okay, so the first one is spongy bone, which is odd, but remember that lining the medullary cavity is spongy bone. We have the endosteum, osteon, the central Haversian canal, collagen fibers, and periosteum, perforating or Sharpie's fibers, concentric lamella, lacuna, canaliculi, interstitial lamella, circumferential lamella, and perforating or Volkmann's canal. So let's name these one more time before we begin. Spongy bone, the endosteum, osteon, the central or Haversian canal, collagen fibers, periosteum, perforating or Sharpie's fibers, concentric lamella, lacuna, canaliculi, interstitial lamella, circumferential lamella, and perforating or Volkmann's canal. Okay. Now, in order to get perspective of this Osteon model, let's talk a little bit about what it shows. Okay, so here's the entire Osteon model. Okay, it's as if you took a cross section through the diaphysis of a long bone. Okay, so here's the outside of the bone. Here's the inside of the bone. So this is be near the medullary cavity here. Okay, and then we have the compact bone. Okay, so what can we see in this figure that are obvious? Well, this model shows in 3 dimensions an osteon here, an osteon here. Of course, these repeating circular structures are also osteons. You can tell an osteon because in the very center, we have a central or Haversian canal. Okay, and there's one here and one here. And within them are blood vessels and nerves. So here on the side right here, we see a blood vessel, each in a central or Haversian canal of a different osteon. What else do we see? In 3 dimensions, we see the circumferential lamella that completely surrounds the bone. Okay? And we see this gray area, which is the periosteum, and the inner layer here is the endosteum. Well, these areas we're going to show in a magnified enlargement of this model. Okay, so here is the this silver lining is the endosteum. Endo meaning within or inside. So here's the endosteum, and you can see the porous nature of the spongy bone. Okay. Students always ask, well, how do we know which one to say? Well, if the question asks what type of bone this is, then you know they're trying to get you to say spongy bone. But if they say this silver lining, this lining right here, then you would write endosteum. Okay. Now on the outside of the bone, we see this silver layer This is the periosteum. This completely surrounds the outside of the bone. And you can see these white perforating or Sharpie's fibers that connects it to the bone. So on the exam, if we ask for these structures, you can either write perforating fibers or you can write Sharpie's fibers. You don't have to write both. Okay? We can see the part of the circumferential lamella here, and these brown structures here are actually the mature bone cells, or the osteocytes. Okay, I might have left this off the original list at the beginning of this video, but if we ask you for these brown structures, these are the osteocytes, and we'll see them again in other figures. Okay, in this figure is a very nice view of the top of the Osteon model, and so we can see many of the structures we named already. Okay, so here's the Osteon in 3 dimensions here. Here's another Osteon here, and we see the repeating Osteons throughout the model, each one with a central haversian canal, so you know which one is an Osteon. Okay, and so here you can see the osteocytes here. Here are we can see the circumferential lamella here that completely surrounds the circumference of the bone. Okay, we see the endosteum, periosteum, and the perforating or Sharpie's fibers. Okay, now you notice that each osteon is composed of bone called concentric lamella, and these are the rings of bone that form each osteon. So each osteon is composed of these concentric lamella. Okay, and between each concentric lamella is part of the haversian canal system. Okay. Now, many students ask, well, what's the difference between this one and this osteon? Well, here, this one is just showing the concentric lamella, okay, of an osteon. This one, the concentric lamella are split, showing the collagen fibers that help maintain the integrity of each osteon. Okay. Now, some of the structures of an osteon are kind of small. And so what I've done, I've taken this area of the model and made it larger to make it easier. Okay? So here it is right here. So we can easily see 3 clear osteons in this viewpoint. Here's one osteon, here's another osteon, and here's another osteon, each with a central or haversian canal in the center of it. Now we can clearly see that there's small little passageways called the haversian canal system that is separated between each of the concentric lamella. So now here's the concentric lamella. And periodically, you see these little pits, little widened areas. These are called lacuna, which means little lake. Okay. So if we ask you for these little pits here, then you will write lacuna. However, within the lacuna of a living bone is the osteocyte. So on the exam, we may show you the structure, but ask you, well, what would you find inside the living bone? And you would write osteocyte. Okay. Now, it seems like the osteocytes will be kind of far apart, but they extend long extensions, so the osteocytes are actually direct contact with other osteocytes. Okay. Now, another structure, which even in this enlargement it might be hard to see, are these radial passageways that connect one concentric lamella to the next concentric lamella. Okay, these are called canaliculi. Okay, so not only does an osteocyte have direct contact with its neighboring osteocyte, but it's also communication with the concentric lamella with internal to it as well as external to it. Okay, and so remember, within the central haversian canal are blood vessels, which are going to be able to supply oxygen and nutrients to the osteocytes, as well as take away waste products. So these osteocytes are in very good communication for nutrients and waste removal. Okay. Now, Have you ever tried drawing three circles together? No matter how well you draw them, there's always going to be a little space between the three circles. So like here's a part of an osteon, 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 and there's a little space right here where there's a little gap. Well, within this gap is what's called interstitial lamella. Okay, so the interstitial lamella are between the osteons. So we have three different types of lamella. We have the concentric lamella within the osteon. We have the circumferential lamella that completely surrounding the bone. And within or between the osteons, we have the interstitial lamella. Okay? So remember, the lacuna, okay, the canidiculi, and within the lacuna are the osteocytes. Concentric lamella, interstitial lamella, central haversian canal. Okay. Now, in this last figure, is showing a side view of the model. And again, we can see here's an osteon here showing a concentric lamella. Here's an osteocyte here showing the collagen fibers. Okay. We can see these three-dimensional circumferential lamella showing the collagen fibers. Here we see the periosteum, and we see the perforating or Volkmann's canal. We see a blood vessel in each central or haversian canal, but we see one other structure and which connects the central canals together, and this is called a perforating or Volkmann's canal. Okay, so each osteon is also communicating with the osteons adjacent to each other. So once again, this is the perforating or Volkmann's canal. Okay, either term is correct. Okay, and here we can also see again the osteocytes. Okay, then on this side we just see the lacuna. Okay, and on this particular osteon we see some osteocytes here as well. Okay, so now you know the structures of the Osteon model for the bone practical exam for SCB 203.